Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to speak on a topic that is universal yet deeply personal, transforming your pain into power. We all experience suffering in one form or another. Pain, whether emotional, physical, or psychological, is an inevitable part of the human condition. But what if I told you that your pain holds the key to your strength? What if that which hurts you the most is actually a gateway to your greatest potential? Let us begin by considering one of the most profound ideas that often goes unnoticed. Embrace your shadow. We each have a shadow within us, those parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid or deny. These shadows often take the form of fear, insecurity, guilt, or anger. Pain is a natural byproduct of these shadows. It surfaces when we confront what lies beneath the surface of our consciousness, often in the form of suffering. We cannot escape this pain, nor should we try. To transform your pain into power, you must first accept it. To heal, you must confront the parts of you that cause the most discomfort, the very aspects of your psyche that you avoid. Only by embracing the shadow, by fully integrating it into your understanding of yourself, can you unlock its hidden potential. What once hurt you deeply can become a source of strength, resilience, and wisdom when you stop running from it and allow it to shape you. This leads us to the second truth, the alchemy of suffering. The ancient practice of alchemy sought to turn base metals into gold. In much the same way, personal suffering, when faced and understood, has the potential to transmute into something greater. Just as the alchemist worked tirelessly with raw materials, so too must we work with our pain. Suffering is not a curse, but rather an invitation to transformation. When we consciously engage with our pain, when we allow ourselves to feel it, explore it, and learn from it, we begin the process of alchemy. Over time, through this deep engagement, pain loses its power to harm us and begins to transform us into something greater, something stronger. We become more resilient, more compassionate, and more aware of our inner strength. Our pain, once the greatest burden, becomes the very thing that refines us. And finally, let us consider the most profound aspect of pain, the call of the self. Pain, in its most intense form, often serves as a catalyst for self-realization. It shatters the illusions we hold about who we are and forces us to confront the truth of our existence. In moments of suffering, we are reminded that we are more than our external circumstances, more than the roles we play, more than the masks we wear. Pain calls us back to ourselves, to the deepest, truest part of who we are. It invites us to rediscover the self, to break free from the constraints of the ego and the world's expectations. Through this process, pain ceases to be a mere affliction. It becomes a teacher, a guide leading us to the most authentic version of ourselves. This version, this true self, is where your true power lies. Pain, in many forms, is something each of us experiences, yet we often perceive it as a burden or something to be avoided. When we experience pain, we instinctively try to push it away, ignore it, or escape from it. Yet, it is precisely this reaction, this avoidance, that prevents us from tapping into its potential power. The truth is that pain, in its most profound form, carries with it a hidden gift, a key to unlocking deeper layers of ourselves and our potential. To begin the transformative journey of turning pain into power, the first step lies in understanding the concept of the shadow and embracing what it reveals about who we are. This is no easy task, but it is one that, when undertaken with courage and sincerity, can transform us in ways that we cannot yet imagine. We often think of pain as a disruptive force in our lives, one that stands in opposition to our happiness or well-being. It is something we seek to avoid or minimize at all costs. And for many of us, this avoidance becomes a deeply ingrained coping mechanism. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, or pretend that the pain doesn't exist. However, pain is not just a random, unwelcome visitor. It has a purpose. It comes into our lives as a reflection of something within us that we have not yet faced, something hidden beneath the surface. In many ways, pain is like a mirror, reflecting aspects of ourselves that we have long ignored or tried to suppress. If we truly wish to transform our pain, we must first be willing to look at this mirror with honesty, courage, and self-compassion. This is where the concept of the shadow comes into play. The shadow, as some psychological traditions suggest, represents the unconscious or hidden aspects of ourselves. These are parts of our personality, behavior, or emotional world that we have either repressed or rejected because they are uncomfortable, undesirable, or socially unacceptable. We may not even be fully aware of these parts of ourselves, as they exist outside our conscious awareness, lurking in the background of our thoughts and actions. Yet, they are always present, influencing the way we perceive the world and react to it. Pain is often a manifestation of the shadow. It arises when we are confronted with aspects of ourselves that we would rather not see. This might include feelings of guilt, shame, anger, fear, or insecurity, emotions that we have not been able to process or integrate. These feelings can emerge in response to external circumstances, but they often point to deeper, unresolved conflicts within ourselves. For example, if you are struggling with feelings of unworthiness, the pain may arise when you encounter a situation where you feel rejected or not good enough. The external event is not the true cause of the pain, it is simply the trigger. The real source of the pain lies in the inner belief or fear that has been long buried in the unconscious. To truly transform pain into power, we must first be willing to embrace this shadow, to recognize that the pain we experience is not a random or meaningless event, but rather a messenger. The shadow is not inherently negative or evil, it simply represents parts of ourselves that we have yet to understand or accept. It is not an enemy but rather an invitation. When we experience pain, it is a call to look inward, to explore the hidden realms of our own psyche, and to embrace what we find there. This process is not without its difficulties. The very nature of the shadow is that it often brings with it feelings of discomfort, fear, or even shame. It asks us to look at parts of ourselves that we have long denied, rejected, or suppressed. These parts are often painful to confront because they challenge our self-image or our idealized view of who we are. But it is precisely in the act of confronting these aspects with honesty and openness that we can begin to transform them. When we face the parts of ourselves that we have tried to hide, we strip away the illusions that we have built around our identity and begin to uncover the truth of who we really are. In doing so, we reclaim the power that was once locked away in the shadow. This is not to say that the journey of embracing the shadow is easy or straightforward. It requires immense courage, patience, and self-compassion. It is not about trying to fix ourselves or eradicate our pain, but rather about allowing ourselves to feel it fully, to explore it with curiosity, and to learn from it. When we begin to understand the deeper layers of our own pain, we can start to see how it reflects patterns, beliefs, and emotional wounds that we have carried for much of our lives. This understanding can help us gain greater insight into our own behavior and motivations, and ultimately lead to profound personal growth. Moreover, embracing the shadow does not mean we have to become defined by our pain. It is possible to acknowledge and accept the shadow without allowing it to control us. In fact, when we accept the shadow as a part of our whole being, we begin to free ourselves from its grip. Pain, in this sense, becomes a tool for personal liberation. We no longer allow it to dominate or define us, but instead use it as a source of power to move forward and evolve. This process of integration is a key element in the transformation of pain into power. Rather than rejecting or avoiding the parts of ourselves that we find painful or uncomfortable, we make the conscious decision to integrate them into our conscious awareness. This means that we no longer deny our fears, insecurities, or wounds. We allow them to become a part of our conscious identity, not as something to be ashamed of, but as something that informs our growth and understanding. In this way, pain can become a powerful teacher, showing us the ways in which we can evolve and become more whole. As we engage in this process, we begin to realize that the pain we experience is not something that happens to us, but something that we have the power to shape and transform. The pain becomes a powerful catalyst for personal growth, urging us to look deeper within ourselves and ask difficult questions. Who am I beyond my pain? What is this pain trying to teach me? What part of myself have I been avoiding that is now demanding my attention? By asking these questions and being open to the answers, we begin to unlock the true potential that lies hidden within our pain. Moreover, embracing our shadow and transforming our pain into power also involves accepting that our pain does not make us weak or broken, it makes us human. Pain is an inherent part of the human experience, and by acknowledging it, we come to realize that we are not alone in our suffering. Our pain connects us to the greater whole of humanity, reminding us that we all share in the struggles, joys, and challenges of life. When we can view our pain through this lens of interconnectedness, we begin to find meaning in it. We understand that our pain is not something to be ashamed of, but something that can deepen our empathy and compassion for others. Ultimately, embracing the shadow and transforming our pain into power is a journey of self-acceptance and integration. It is about acknowledging the parts of ourselves that we have hidden away, understanding their purpose, and learning to work with them rather than against them. When we do this, we open ourselves up to greater levels of personal growth, resilience, and empowerment. We stop seeing pain as a hindrance to our happiness and instead begin to see it as a powerful force for transformation. In embracing the shadow and allowing it to guide us, we unlock the deepest wellspring of strength, wisdom, and potential that lies within each and every one of us. Suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience. While it's often viewed as a purely negative force, something to be avoided at all costs, there is another way to understand it. What if, instead of seeing suffering as a curse, we viewed it as an opportunity, a means by which we can transform and grow? The notion of suffering being a catalyst for transformation has been explored for centuries, and one of the most profound ways to understand this process is through the concept of alchemy. Alchemy is often thought of as the medieval precursor to chemistry, a practice that sought to turn base metals into gold. This goal, however, was not merely material. It also had profound philosophical and spiritual implications. Alchemists believed that the process of transforming one substance into another could mirror the transformation of the soul. The alchemical process, in its most symbolic sense, speaks to the journey of personal and spiritual refinement, wherein a person undergoes a kind of inner transmutation, much like turning lead into gold. This process is not quick or easy. It requires patience, effort, and a willingness to confront the darker aspects of the self. In a similar way, suffering, when properly understood and engaged with, can serve as a catalyst for personal growth, helping us refine our character, deepen our understanding of the world, and achieve a higher sense of wholeness. When we experience pain, it often feels as though we are broken or damaged. It's as if the suffering has stripped us of something valuable, leaving us feeling depleted or weakened. But if we are willing to approach our suffering with the right mindset, we can begin to view it differently. Suffering is not inherently destructive. It can be a powerful tool for transformation. Pain, instead of being a source of weakness, can act as a furnace that refines us, burning away the impurities within our character while leaving behind something stronger, purer, and more resilient. One of the most important aspects of this process of transformation is that it requires conscious engagement. Alchemists did not simply throw materials into a fire and hope for gold to appear. They worked with those materials, studied them, and carefully tended to the process. Similarly, when we experience suffering, we cannot simply ignore it or attempt to escape from it. Instead, we must engage with it. This means acknowledging our pain, understanding its origins, and allowing ourselves to feel it fully. Rather than pushing suffering away, we must sit with it, reflect on it, and allow it to guide us. This process is not about avoiding pain, but rather about embracing it as a tool for self-discovery and transformation. At the heart of this alchemical approach to suffering is the understanding that pain is not something that happens to us randomly. It is not simply an unfortunate part of life that we must endure. Rather, suffering has a purpose. It is an invitation to engage with ourselves more deeply, to explore the parts of us that we may have been avoiding or suppressing. In this way, suffering becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting back to us the aspects of our inner world that we have not yet confronted. It reveals to us where we are out of balance, where our beliefs or behaviors are limiting us, and where we need to grow. To truly transform suffering into a powerful force for growth, we must stop viewing it as a purely negative experience. Instead, we must recognize that pain and suffering can serve as a process of refinement. Just as gold must be extracted from ore and purified through fire, so too must we undergo a process of purification through the trials of life. This is not to say that suffering is pleasant or easy to endure. On the contrary, it is often painful and disorienting. But through this process of engaging with our pain, we gain the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. One of the most profound aspects of this process of suffering and transformation is the realization that we are not defined by our pain. Pain does not have to become our identity. In fact, the more we allow ourselves to fully experience suffering and engage with it, the less it has power over us. It is only when we resist our pain or attempt to escape from it that it retains its grip on us. But when we face it head-on, we begin to see that we are more than our suffering. Our true essence is not defined by our pain. Rather, our essence is revealed through our ability to navigate that pain and transform it into something greater. In this way, suffering becomes a kind of alchemical gold, a product of inner transformation. Rather than breaking us down, pain can build us up. It can deepen our empathy, expand our wisdom, and help us cultivate a sense of inner resilience that cannot be shaken. When we allow ourselves to fully engage with our suffering, we begin to see it as a necessary part of the process of becoming who we are meant to be. Like the alchemist who works tirelessly to transmute base materials into gold, we too can work through our suffering to become more whole, more authentic, and more capable of living in alignment with our true selves. This process of transformation through suffering requires us to let go of our attachment to the idea of avoiding pain at all costs. In modern society, there is often a tendency to view pain as something to be eradicated. We turn to various distractions, substances, or external achievements in an attempt to escape discomfort. But this approach only postpones the inevitable. Pain will always find a way to re-emerge, often in more subtle and insidious ways. It is only by confronting our suffering directly, by allowing ourselves to experience it fully, that we can begin to understand its deeper purpose. The alchemical process of transformation is not a quick fix. It is a gradual and often difficult process that requires time, patience, and perseverance. But the rewards are immense. When we engage with our suffering consciously, when we allow it to guide us through the process of inner refinement, we emerge on the other side stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. We become more attuned to our own emotional and psychological landscapes, and we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In this way, suffering, when approached with the right mindset, becomes a powerful tool for personal growth. Ultimately, the alchemical process of transforming suffering into power is about reclaiming our agency in the face of adversity. It is about recognizing that while we cannot always control the external circumstances that bring us pain, we have the power to control how we respond to that pain. We can choose to resist, to avoid, or to ignore our suffering. But in doing so, we miss the opportunity to learn from it and to grow. Alternatively, we can choose to face our suffering with courage, to engage with it consciously, and to allow it to guide us on a path of transformation. Pain, in its many forms, has a way of forcing us to confront the deepest parts of ourselves. It arrives uninvited, often at the most inconvenient times, and makes us aware of things we would rather avoid. But what if pain is not merely a sign of something wrong, but instead a call to something deeper, something more authentic? What if, instead of seeing pain as a punishment, we viewed it as a guide, a signal that we are being led back to our true selves? This perspective suggests that the deepest pain we experience often points directly to our essential nature, urging us to reconnect with the self in its purest form. The idea of the self is central to many philosophical and psychological traditions. It represents the core of who we are, our essence, our truest self, beyond the layers of external expectations, societal roles, and the identities we have constructed over time. Throughout life, we are conditioned to adopt various personas, shaped by our families, cultures, and environments. We are told who we should be, what we should want, how we should behave, and how we should think. These external impositions create a version of ourselves that may be disconnected from our true nature, The self, as the truest expression of who we are, often becomes buried beneath these layers. The pain we experience, whether emotional, physical, or psychological, often emerges when the version of ourselves we are living is out of alignment with this deeper, authentic self. This is where pain becomes a calling, a signal that we are not living in harmony with our truest nature. Pain arises when we are disconnected from who we are meant to be. It is a kind of wake-up call that forces us to ask the most fundamental question: who am I? When we face our suffering, especially when it feels overwhelming or all-consuming, we are being confronted with a deep, often hidden truth about ourselves. This truth is not always comfortable to face, as it requires us to let go of the illusions we have built about who we think we should be, and instead embrace the reality of who we actually are. This process of discovering and reconnecting with the self can be both painful and liberating. To understand this deeper connection, we must first recognize that our sense of self is not static. It is fluid, ever-changing, and constantly evolving. As we move through life, we are shaped by our experiences, our relationships, and our environment. These external forces contribute to the formation of our personality, our beliefs, and our behaviors. However, this personality is often a reflection of what others have told us we should be, rather than a true expression of who we are at our core. We may find ourselves playing roles that no longer resonate with our inner truth, or perhaps we never fully explore what those roles mean in the context of our authentic self. Pain serves as the catalyst for this deeper exploration. It often forces us to examine the discrepancies between who we think we are and who we actually are. This examination can be uncomfortable, but it is through this discomfort that we begin to uncover the truth. Pain shows us where we are out of alignment with our true self. It presents us with the opportunity to question everything we have been taught, everything we have accepted, and everything we have become. It is an invitation to go beyond the external persona and uncover what lies beneath, in the deepest recesses of our being. In this way, pain is not a punishment, but a profound opportunity for self-realization. When we experience pain, we are not being tested or judged. Rather, we are being asked to come home to ourselves. It is as if pain is the universe's way of reminding us that we are meant to live authentically, not merely in accordance with the roles or identities imposed upon us. And though the process of reconnecting with the self may be filled with challenges, it is ultimately a journey of self-liberation. As we face the pain and discomfort that arises from our misalignment, we begin to shed the false identities that no longer serve us and step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. This journey of reconnecting with the self involves deep introspection and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves that we may have avoided or denied. These parts often hold the key to our truest nature, but they are also the parts we fear most. The parts of ourselves that we deem weak or unacceptable are often the ones that contain the most valuable insights. These are the parts of us that are linked to our deepest desires, our truest motivations, and our most authentic needs. They are the parts that, when integrated into our conscious awareness, can help us reconnect with the essence of who we truly are. The pain we experience often arises from the tension between our true self and the image we have created of ourselves. This dissonance between the two can create a deep sense of inner conflict, manifesting as anxiety, frustration, or despair. In many cases, we do not even recognize the source of this conflict. We may simply feel lost, confused, or disconnected from our own sense of meaning and purpose. Yet this very feeling of disconnection is a sign that we are being called to return to our authentic self. The pain is a guide, showing us the way back to who we truly are, beyond the expectations of the world. Reconnecting with the self requires a willingness to let go of the ego, the constructed identity we have built around ourselves. The ego is often composed of the roles we play, the labels we have accepted, and the stories we tell about who we are. While the ego serves an important function in helping us navigate the world, it can also become a barrier to deeper self-connection. The ego is a mask that we wear to fit into society, to meet expectations, and to protect ourselves from vulnerability. However, this mask often conceals the most authentic parts of who we are. Pain, therefore, serves as a reminder that the ego is not the entirety of who we are. It is a temporary construction, and the self exists beyond it. When we begin to peel away the layers of the ego and confront the pain that arises from this process, we begin to uncover the true essence of who we are. This requires us to let go of the need for external validation, the desire to conform, and the fear of being judged. It is only by embracing our true self, authentic, raw, and unfiltered, that we can experience the freedom and empowerment that comes with living in alignment with our deepest truth. This is the essence of self-realization, the moment when we recognize that we are not defined by external labels, but by the core of who we truly are. The process of reconnecting with the self is not linear. It is not a simple, straightforward path. Rather, it is a dynamic and evolving journey that requires us to revisit old wounds, question limiting beliefs, and challenge societal norms. This journey is one of constant self-discovery, where we continuously evolve and adapt in response to our inner truth. The pain we experience along the way is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced as a necessary part of this evolution. Each painful experience, each moment of discomfort, is an opportunity for growth, transformation, and self-discovery. In conclusion, the journey of transforming pain into power is not one that occurs overnight, nor is it a path free of hardship. It is, however, a transformative process that holds within it the potential for profound growth and self-realization. By embracing our pain, rather than running from it, we open ourselves to the possibility of discovering deeper truths about ourselves, truths that have the power to guide us toward greater authenticity, inner strength, and fulfillment. We began by recognizing that pain is not an enemy, but a messenger. It is a reflection of our shadow, calling us to face the parts of ourselves we have long ignored or suppressed. In facing this shadow, we begin the process of personal transformation, slowly shedding the false identities that no longer serve us, and reconnecting with the true essence of who we are. We understand that pain, while uncomfortable, is a necessary part of the alchemical process of refining our character, just as heat refines gold. It is through pain that we are refined, strengthened, and ultimately empowered. Furthermore, we learn that pain serves as a direct path back to our true self, urging us to reconnect with the core of our being. When we are aligned with our authentic self, we find that the pain we once feared or avoided becomes a source of liberation and strength. It reveals to us the truth of who we are, beyond the roles, expectations, and illusions we have been conditioned to adopt. In facing the discomfort and fear that often arise in this journey, we realize that pain is not a punishment, but a reminder to live in alignment with our deepest truth. The process of transforming pain into power is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and the willingness to face discomfort head-on. But in embracing our suffering and understanding its deeper meaning, we unlock the potential for personal growth, healing, and empowerment. Pain, when engaged with consciously, becomes a tool for transformation, one that leads us to greater wisdom, resilience, and a profound sense of inner peace. Ultimately, the power to transform pain lies within each of us. It is not something that happens to us, but something we actively participate in. The choice is ours. We can either allow pain to define us, or we can use it as a stepping stone toward becoming the best version of ourselves. By embracing the lessons hidden within our pain, we step into a life of greater freedom, authenticity, and purpose. Pain, when transformed, becomes not a weight to carry, but a force that propels us toward our highest potential.